Hi everybody. In this video I want to explain and demonstrate a new tool that I developed called the VC Experimenter. And actually the purpose of this tool is to give you the opportunity to kind of test your startup ideas and get feedback from synthetic VC investors. Because often VC investors are difficult to approach, and when you have the opportunity to approach them, you want to be fully prepared, and this tool can actually help you to test some ideas and kind of estimate what kind of approach could be most attractive to VC investors. So let me show you the application that I built. So this is the application called the Synthetic VC Experimenter, and you will find a link to the application in the description of the video. So let me show you a bit how it works. The first thing we will need to do is to give a CrewAI key. So I will now copy paste my CrewAI key here. I have a separate video on how to get a CrewAI key. We need it because we communicate here with a llama open source model. The advantage of that is completely free. So the only thing you need is to get this API key from the Crew cloud. And then what we will have to do, so here it's explained, subsequently we need to add some information to this setup tab, and I will immediately show you which information. Then we can run the experiment, and you will be able to monitor the progress here on the Run Experiment tab, and when the experiment is ready, you will get the results in the Result tab. So what do we have to give here as information? So here we have to give as information a control scenario and a treatment scenario. So here we actually are able to kind of copy paste two scenarios about your startup, and subsequently a team of VC investors, a synthetic team of VC investors, will evaluate both scenarios. So then you can also see a bit which kind of scenario would resonate the most with an average VC investor. Now here, for the sake of simplicity, I prepared in ChatGPT two scenarios. So I asked it to create a control and a treatment version of a startup. And the only thing that I kind of differentiate here is the level of experience of the founder. So I want to test whether emphasizing that the founder has a lot of experience can make the startup more attractive to VC investors. This is a quite straightforward case, but I think for testing this application, it makes sense. So I asked ChatGPT to create two scenarios, and here we can see the scenarios that it created. So now I can simply copy paste these scenarios into my application. So let me briefly do that. So this is the control scenario, and now I will do the treatment scenario. So this is then the treatment scenario. And so the simple distinction is that in the treatment scenario, the founder has much more experience. So then we will be able to see whether that makes a distinction when we run it to the VC investors. Here I need to give it a question. So what is actually the question that VC investors have to answer? So here we could do something like rate on a scale of 0 to 10. How likely you would be to invest in this startup. And so every VC investor that I create will answer this question for both scenarios. And we can indicate the sample size. So this is how many VC investors do you want to respond to these questions. And here we have now a number of 10. I will leave it like that. You can do much more. You just have to take into account that you might hit rate limits if you make the sample too big, because we are relying here on a llama model, which has some rate limits to what extent you can use it on a daily basis and how many requests you can do per minute. But 10 is definitely feasible, and you could definitely go up a bit more. Yeah? So then we simply have to click Start Experiment, and you see our application starts running now. And now we can go to the Run Experiment tab. And here you can see it has started to run our experiment, and we can follow the progress. You see this will take some time. So this will definitely take some minutes because there's quite a lot of stuff going on in the background. So as this application is running, let me briefly explain you a bit what is actually happening in the background here of this application. Yes, so what I actually designed here is a team of agents that do a number of tasks. And I used, in technical terms, CrewAI to create this team of agents. Now, as you could see in the application, we need to give some input, yeah? So we give the scenarios, we give the question and the number of respondents. So that's the input that this application can use. And based on that input, it will create a first step, namely, given the number of respondents, it will actually create a random sample of VC investors where it will kind of create variation in terms of the age of the VC investor, the work experience of the VC investor, the gender, and the VC reputation of the VC investor. So it simply creates a random sample. In our case, it will create a random sample for 10 respondents. Subsequently, this sample will be fed into the first agent. And this first agent, based on the information created in the random sample, will create for each person an in-depth persona. So it will create, based on the age, VC experience, work experience, it will create an in-depth persona as a VC investor. That will be the output of the first agent. And let me show you here an example. So this is the kind of persona description we will get based on the provided input. So you see it's quite an extensive CV here of a person called Sarah Thompson, who is a VC investor. So that's what the first agent will do. And then this persona that we now created will be asked to answer the question for the control experiment, for the control scenario. And in this case, that means it needs to grade on a scale from 0 to 10 how likely she would be willing to invest in this startup. And so as output, we will create an answer, namely a score on a scale from 0 to 10. And there will also be an explanation for that answer. And subsequently, we do the same for the treatment. So every VC investor created in our sample will also answer the treatment condition. So in that way, in the end, we get an overview. And let me show that to you. So here, for instance, you have an example. So this was one person, and randomly the VC investor looks like this, age 35, male, 16 years of work experience, and he works at a VC with extensive exit history. And this person gave a score of 9 on the first scenario, and here is the explanation, and a score on 8 on the second scenario, and again, you get an explanation here. So that's how this application works. So now let's go back to our application to see whether it's finished and what we can learn from that. So now the experiment is ready. So now we can start exploring actually the results of our experiment. So we go to the results tab, and here we can briefly see a sample of the scores. So we see that the first 5 respondents answered like this for the control condition and for the treatment condition. Then we get a kind of comparison here. So we see that the average for the control is 7.2, whereas from the treatment 7.7. Here we get even a kind of box plot. And here it will do a statistical analysis, seeing whether there is a statistical significant difference between your control and treatment condition. And in this case, there indeed seems to be a significant difference. So the treatment condition, as we expected, so if you have a description where the founder has much more experience, then on average, VC investors will be more likely to invest in you. So that's not a big surprise, but here at least it shows that the experiment seems to be in line with our expectations. And here you get a table with the full data that you can also download as a CSV. So here you will get the full sample, this persona for the person that was used, as well as all the scores and the answers, so that you can do then yourself an in-depth analysis as you want. Okay, this was the application that I wanted to show you today. I hope this can kind of help you a bit with thinking about how VC investors can think about your startup idea. This is still kind of a prototype, so I would really be happy if you can give me some feedback. Did it work? Was it what you expected? But also, if you have ideas on how I can enrich this application, please don't hesitate to reach out, because that would be really helpful for me. Okay, thank you for your attention. Bye.